On the edge of death, two chained dragons saw a figure in the snow. It was human. The blizzard had teeth. Kale's scales, hardened by 3 centuries of mountain living, cracked under the cold. Ice accumulated in the spaces between her dorsal plates, freezing muscle to bone. Beside her, Vex, larger, older, and equally weakened, breathed in shallow, controlled gasps. Their shared chain, forged in a time when their kind still flew free, connected them at the foreleg. 20 feet of enchanted iron that had never broken, never loosened. The cave offered no shelter anymore. The seal that bound them here had weakened with time, allowing bitter wind to cut through crevices that had once been sealed tight. The humans who maintained the seal had stopped coming decades ago. Perhaps they'd forgotten. Perhaps they'd died. Kale didn't much care anymore. Death was preferable to this. She estimated they had perhaps 6 hours before hypothermia claimed them. Vex's breathing had already become irregular. The first sign, his once vibrant scales, deep purple like twilight, had dulled to ash. He was dying. She was dying. The chain connecting them would ensure they died together. Do you remember the thermals above the Shan peaks? Vex's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Stop, Kale said. But she remembered. Warm air rising from geothermal vents. The sensation of riding heat currents that lifted them higher than the clouds themselves. We could have flown forever, Vex continued, his eyes still sharp despite his failing body, fixed on the blizzard beyond their stone prison. We chose wrong, Kale. We should have fought. We were outnumbered 10,000 to 2, Kale replied flatly. Fighting would have changed nothing. The humans had come with purpose. They'd heard the tales, dragons taking cattle, dragons burning villages. The truth was simpler. They were hungry, and civilization had expanded into their hunting grounds. But truth didn't matter to humans. Only numbers mattered. Only fear. A shadow moved through the snow. Kale's half-closed eyes snapped open. Vex lifted his head, his weakened muscles trembling with the effort. The shadow resolved into a figure, bipedal, small, wrapped in white furs that made it nearly invisible against the storm. A human, alone. The figure approached the cave entrance with deliberate, methodical steps. Not the frantic movement of someone lost in a blizzard, not the confident stride of a hunter. This was the movement of someone who knew exactly where they were going. The human stepped inside, snowfall obscuring them momentarily before they emerged fully into the dim cave light. They were young, perhaps 30 years old, with dark skin and eyes that scanned the interior with scientific precision rather than fear. Remarkable, the human said, speaking the old tongue. Their accent was clean, precise. Still alive. I wasn't certain the metabolic calculations would account for severity of the weather patterns this century. Kale's mind, sluggish from cold, struggled to process language she hadn't heard directed at her in 40 years. The human approached without hesitation. They wore a leather satchel at their side, which they opened carefully. Inside were containers, glass vials filled with crystalline substances that caught the pale cave light. The binding seal's degradation is consistent with theoretical models. The human continued, more to themselves and to the dragons. Entropy always wins against forced stasis. The question was whether you'd survive long enough for intervention. Who are you? Kale demanded, her voice raw. The human glanced at her with something approaching humor. A researcher, a student of your kind, a believer in things that were deemed impossible. They held up one of the vials. This is a metabolic accelerant derived from your own genetic material, harvested from scales shed in your earliest years of captivity. It should counteract the hypothermia enough to stabilize your core functions. Why would you help us? Vex asked, his ancient eyes narrowing with suspicion. Because, the human said, opening the first vial and moving toward them with steady purpose, your imprisonment was never justice. It was genocide in slow motion. And because I spent 15 years proving to the academic institutions that your species is a mythology or monster, you're simply intelligent beings who made the mistake of existing where humans wanted dominance. The liquid was warm on Kale's cracked scales. Within minutes, sensation returned to her extremities, painful, burning sensation as circulation restored. Beside her, Vex gasped, his purple scales beginning to show color again. The human worked methodically, administering doses to both dragons, then producing tools from their satchel. Precise instruments that began working on the chain mechanism. The seal is failing anyway, the human explained, manipulating a complex series of locks. Your captors are long dead, replaced by a society that's begun questioning why dragons are bound in caves at all. In 3 generations, the narrative changed. You became symbols, protected heritage. The chain fell away with a sound like breaking ice. Kale stood, her legs unsteady, testing her wings for the first time in decades. They opened, painful and used, but functional. Beside her, Vex rose as well, his ancient frame remembering the shape of freedom. The thermals are still there, the human said, gesturing toward the blizzard. Stronger now, actually. Climate change has intensified geothermal activity. You'll ride them higher than you ever did before. Kale looked at this small, fragile human who had saved them. What's your name? Amara, the human said, and I'll be publishing the data on my own species capacity for redemption. Perhaps we'll earn a footnote in your history as the ones who finally got something right. Kale extended her massive head, pressing it gently against Amara's body in a gesture older than written language. Then she and Vex turned toward the cave mouth, toward the wind, toward the thermals calling them home. Behind them, Amara smiled, documenting everything.